everybody, and welcome to the Grapevine. It's me, your host, Linda, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Nami.
Hello.
And today we are talking with eternaforest.
Hello.
And Kris.
Hello, hello.
How you doing, ladies?
Pretty good.
I'm good.
What you been up to?
Oh, man, just, getting acclimated to my new job, new city, across the country, trying to get it back into the swing of things with, doing art and playing games.
Did you just move or?
Yeah, I moved to Vancouver from Toronto about a month ago.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah. That's pretty far.
Yeah, literally East Coast to West Coast, so it's been a whirlwind of changes the past few, weeks, so.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And how about you, Eterna?
I just recently started, recently as in last month, my full-time job at the company I work for, so I've also been extremely busy. They especially have enjoyed giving me things to do since I was an intern before, so they were already kind of, dogging on me anyways. Before this, it was let's give the intern all the work, but now it's let's give the new hire all the work.
Cutting into our practice time.
Yep. Do you like getting calls about things being broken at 12 in the morning? Because I do.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you two ladies have been, as the kids say, getting that bread.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
I have been beasting that yeast.
I'm dying, Squirtle. Okay, so we have you two ladies on today because we wanted to tap more into the creative side of DB, and I guess just to start off, how did the two of you hear about DB?
Well, I started playing Overwatch on my own. I didn't really have any friends who played FPS. It was my first FPS myself. And just, randomly, you got friends on the enemy team who are don't shoot at you, you just wave and do memes and joke around. It's kind of like that. But, I just really hit it off with Luna. She was on my team one time, and we just cracked a bunch of jokes together in the same game, I think. And we just made friends and kept hanging out. And then she was like, yo, I heard about this, Discord server. You should totally join. And so I did. And that was, a little while ago. And so
it was
far,
the best decision of your life.
Yeah, of my entire life. I have become an enlightened being. My pores are clear. I've become an Adonis. I've got an amazing job, all because of Death Blossoms.
Oh, that's amazing.
Damn.
Eterna.
So I started playing Overwatch day one. Like most other people in Death Blossoms, I feel it was also my first FPS that I played pretty seriously, or at least took seriously and played regularly. I joined Death Blossoms in January of 2017. I had just moved out of my parents' house to go to college, and I wanted to continue playing the game, but I didn't really have any friends that played it, and I was definitely not in a community that had a lot of people that played it. So I just wanted to join a place where not only, there were other people like me that played the game, but also where I could make some friends, because transitioning into, going to school off somewhere new instead of going to school and living with your parents was a lot, and it really helped me my first semester of college, just to have something to do always if I ever felt lonely or didn't have anything to do, no homework or anything.
Okay, so kind of when you first
okay.
Excuse me
Me, sad 18-year-old plays video games by self in dorm room instead of partying. Yes, okay.
I mean, isn't that the cool thing to do?
Oh, of course. My
Definitely.
sweet mates loved me. They loved the fact that I just never bothered them. I didn't drink their alcohol or anything. They were like, yeah, you're good.
You didn't wake them up in the middle of the
Nope.
night. Yeah.
I wish that could have been my experience. I just remember a lot of people screaming about Gears.
About Gears?
Yeah, Gears of War. I knew a lot of kids in college who played Gears really competitively, including one girl who was on the early Gears esports scene.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God.
A lot of screaming.
All of my sweet mates were in sororities, so I just sort of let them do what they did, and they let me do what I did, and it turned out great.
Yeah, I mean, I was never I never lived with other students in a dorm or anything, so it's not like I'd ever had that experience, but that's pretty much how it would have been.
It was a lot to get used to because I'd never lived anywhere else. I'd only ever lived with my parents, and just going to a new school, not knowing anybody. It was about 100 miles from my hometown, so I truly didn't know anyone, and no one knew me. So it was just a good chance to, like, I don't know, kind of embrace things that I was interested in that I kind of maybe hid a bit when I was in high school for fear of being judged or, you know, stuff like that. So it was a good way for me to branch out.
That's interesting because we were talking on the first episode about how I was saying when I was in high school, people didn't talk really about the fact that they played video games. It was like nerdy and like uncool to play them, but apparently it wasn't like everyone's experience.
Yes, Kris.
Like similarly, I guess, kind of on the topic of branching out, it's kind of like I also wanted to delve into things that I hadn't tried before, especially because I think it was about 2-3 years ago now that I started playing Overwatch. So I was still kind of starting out freelancing, and as such, I worked from home. And if I have to be honest, it's not really for me, like my kind of personality. I found it a very isolating experience. So I wanted to kind of use the launch of this kind of cool, new, hip, fun game to, maybe meet some people, make some new online friends, because online friends have always been kind of my experience growing up. So I kind of jumped at that chance, and it really turned out well because, Death Blossoms.
Yeah. So, like, were you guys more, you said, like, you heard about Overwatch. Was it just the game itself, or were you guys getting into the fandom also, or?
What really drew me to it at first was the art style. Like, I wanted, before I'd even touch any character, I wanted to get into it because I wanted to look around the map. Like Hanamura, was a eyegasm. First of all, like in the promotional material, I was like, "Yo, this place looks so pretty. I just want to get in there and walk around." And then, because it was my first FPS, and I sucked. Like I was like, "Okay, I just want to look at the pretty game. It doesn't matter if I die as long as it's like good looking." And after that, I started picking it up and getting into the mechanics, and that's how I really got into it.
And was it because of like the Dragons short that they showed like Hanamura?
Oh yeah, like all the shorts. Like when the first time I saw Dragons, I cried, dude. Like it moved me so much. The music, the visuals. I was like, I love the style of this game. I really need to get all over this. And that was about it really. Because I didn't have any friends who played Overwatch. Like I had other games in the Battle.net client, like Diablo 2, like I had a few friends from college who played Diablo 2, but no one was really into this one, so it was kind of like exploring on my own.
Okay, like people were not really into like competitive games.
Yeah. Like not like more, like they were into more like co-op experiences, like dungeon crawling together rather than facing other people. So the only other experience I had with that was League of Legends. So especially referring specifically to the FPS genre, I didn't really have any friends like that.
Yes, Eterna.
So I had never played any Blizzard games before Overwatch, which is probably crazy to some people given their just how popular they are.
I'm in the same camp.
Any of them at all? Like
no.
Oh wow, okay.
I'd heard of them, of course. Like growing up, I had heard of World of Warcraft. I remember when Diablo came out and just like seeing
She had heard of StarCraft also.
Yeah, I specifically remember the news, my local news covering one of the Diablo like releases. They were just like, look at all these gamers outside GameStop waiting for this new video game, and I was like, okay. But I did play like multiplayer games. I really enjoyed things like team-based things and MMOs. I liked the sense of a community, but like the thing that really drew me to Overwatch, I think, also was the visuals, but just the fact that once I really saw what the game was about, the whole theme, the story, the characters, and just like what they all stood for and what the overarching like story, I guess, even though we don't really have a lot of lore, but you know what I mean.
So far.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like the whole idea of it, I was just very intrigued, and I thought, even though this is a shooter, I see a lot of like uniqueness and potential. Yeah, it wasn't your standard like
Call of Duty.
Yeah, like I'm an army man and I'm gonna go shoot up the baddies. Like I don't know. I could see the uniqueness of all the different heroes and that everybody had something to bring to the table, and it wasn't just like shooty pew pew and then we go home. You know, like there was something more there than just an FPS game.
Yeah, for sure. Lynnda, you want to chime in or?
No, I just think it's interesting to hear somebody else say that they don't have a lot of experience with Blizzard games. Like, I know a lot of stuff through, like, cultural osmosis, but, like, the only other Blizzard game I really played was, like, a demo for World of Warcraft because my sister wanted a mount.
Oh my god.
She's like, if you play this game, I get some cool horse. And I'm like, I don't like it.
I think the first Blizzard game I played was, like, Warcraft 2, like the MS-DOS version. It's like,
oh wow.
Then I played StarCraft, Diablo 1, Diablo 2. Then I eventually got into World of Warcraft, and yeah, Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm. I play like all of them basically.
Which, like, what year did Warcraft come out? It was in the
World of Warcraft or the old like Warcraft games?
Well, I guess. I mean, technically any of them. I know World of Warcraft came out in the early 2000s.
2004, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would have been...
Warcraft 2 was in the 90s.
You would have been a fetus.
Yeah, I would have been very young. 2004, I would have been like 6 or 7. So,
a fetus.
Yeah, basically a fetus.
StarCraft, I believe, came out in 98, 99, something like that. And I was in like middle school or something, and... yeah.
And especially living where I lived growing up, you know, I grew up in a town of like 7,000 people. We didn't really have great internet. We didn't have, I didn't have a great PC. I remember struggling to run a bunch of stuff on my laptop that I got in middle school, which was like life-changing experience. We got Wi-Fi in the house and didn't have to sit at the desktop with the CRT and all that. Like, we had dial-up probably longer than what was acceptable because that's all that was offered to us. So I didn't really have a chance to get into online games until I got older.
Yeah, I played StarCraft. We didn't even have internet yet. We didn't even have dial-up. We played by modem. Basically, you would enter your friend's phone number.
Oh my goodness.
And it would connect to the other person's modem, and you just play like that. It would take up the phone line.
Eterna, I'm like feeling such a strong spiritual connection to you right now because that was my exact situation growing up too. Like, just ass backwards internet connection.
Yeah, and even now, like, I'm in a city of 170,000 people, and we have fiber internet, and you bet your ass I am never leaving unless wherever I move to has the same thing. My life has been changed.
Is it a big difference between, like, your internet that you have now and, like, at your parents'? Or...
Oh, yeah. My parents get about, I don't know, like 30 down and 5 up on a good day,
geez. Okay,
and here I get like 850 down and up symmetrical. So
yeah, that's a big difference.
I just remember having to leave my downloads overnight and having to buy physical, which is still the reason that I have a disk drive in my PC, is because my internet was not good enough to download games, forever. I mean, I bought Overwatch physical, so...
But the thing is, you didn't download games back then. You had to buy them. Like, it wasn't really an option. It would take hours to download, like, one MP3. So, downloading a game, like, that would take, like, days to download it.
Good old LimeWire days.
Oh, yeah.
I remember just leaving BitTorrent open to download, like, to totally not download any anime overnight, and I'd have maybe half an episode before I had to go to school the next morning.
Yeah.
Like, we had dial-up until about, I was 17, 18, so that was, like, 2007, 2008. And even then, the Wi-Fi's not that good.
Until, like, 2001. Like, I got cable. Oh, God, yeah. Best noise in the world.
Calling the aliens.
I'm here all week. But to sort of get back to DB, so, of course, obviously, you two ladies heard about DB. What sort of drew you to it? What made you look at it and go, I think I want a piece of that?
You want a piece of that.
I want a piece of that DB.
It was definitely the fact that it was more of a closed community. I was glad there was no chaos. I feel like sometimes when you get involved into some communities or some games, it's just like a huge clusterfuck and like really confusing, and it's like, who do I talk to? There's so many people. It's kind of like the difference between joining a guild with like 50 people and joining a guild with 500 people.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that it was kind of a smaller, close-knit community that had a bunch of stuff to offer for people who identified as female. Not that there's anything wrong with playing games with guys. It's just that it's nice to be surrounded with your people sometimes, especially given this was my first real FPS game I got super interested in. I just remember playing a lot of PlanetSide 2 when I was homeschooled, and pretty much if you came across a girl in any session, that was like insane. So I was like the little sister of the outfit that I was in until I quit playing, and it wasn't fun being treated as like different and special almost.
Yeah, and it's not the same attitude either. Like,
right.
Like, nothing against guys. Like, I play with like a bunch of guy friends, but
oh yeah,
it's not the same.
It really isn't. It's nice to be able to just be like, yo, I'm here to have fun, and I'm here to, you know, hang out and have a good time, and I'm not necessarily here to win and like steamroll my enemies and get all this prestige and like I'm really good at the game. Like, no, I'm here to have fun. If I was here to be good, I wouldn't be playing anymore because I'm not.
I mean, if you're not good, then I'm like complete trash.
How about yourself, Kris?
So, I'm not sure if this is very obvious to you guys, but my heart goes out to everyone who's been a victim of this kind of stuff, but I personally, because of my voice, have never really been targeted as, you know, a girl on the internet playing games. Like, I think actually maybe in the 3 years that I've played Overwatch, someone's identified me as a girl twice ever. So in that vein, I still wanted to be a part of a group that I could identify with. Like, hey, you know, like, we're just a bunch of gals, like, wrecking face in video games. I want to make some friends like that. And on top of that, like, my first, I'd say, month or two in Death Blossoms, like, it was, like, really chill. Like, I know that there are servers for people who, like, we're gonna make it to top 500 no matter what. Like, let's grind for like 4 hours a day. We gotta scrim like 3 times a week. Like that, I mean, that's admirable, but you know, not everybody is looking for that kind of experience. And what I found with Death Blossoms is that it's a little bit of both. Like, you have like the really supportive, like, DBU stuff. If, you know, people are trying to learn, like, no matter what your experience level is with the hero, like, people will give you a hand, like, save the VODs and you can watch it later. And then you have, like, you know, the little off-topic stuff like cooking blossoms, fitness blossoms, things like that. They're really sweet that let people form bonds outside of just let's talk about Overwatch 24/7. But on top of that, there's also, like, you know, both the inter-community and like, server, I guess, tournaments that Death Blossoms has run, like, between, like, us and other, you know, female-centric gaming clans, or between some of the Death Blossoms teams against other Death Blossoms teams. Like, there's a nice balance with that, and I feel like that keeps it in a way that, you know, being good at the game doesn't necessarily equate to social currency. Like, if you're bad at the game, it's not a big deal. Like, who cares? It's just a game. And that's, I feel like, the mentality that a lot of people in Death Blossoms have, and I think that's really good. And it's really important to maintain that kind of thing. And that's what I liked the most about it. Like, it was just very well-rounded community, and it still is, I think.
I agree. It's like a big sisterhood. Like, we're all here together. We're all a family. Like, we're more than just Overwatch. We're really like a community. Even though that's what we were based on, it's just incredible to see that, you know, not only are there this many people that play Overwatch, there's this many people that also play Overwatch and like to cook, or play Overwatch and don't mind to help me out. And it just, I don't know, it's like a big family, and it's really nice to not only be in a community that's, you know, furthering the enjoyment of like playing video games, but it's also like I actually have friends that I can talk to about whatever, you know?
Yeah, I laughed when like Kris mentioned the cooking blossoms, because I was imagining like an all guy like community, and then they have like a cooking channel. Like, I feel like that would not be ramen. That would not be a thing.
Eat the brick raw and snort the powder. Drink the boiling water.
You see, you joke about this, but like, I had a coworker who I worked with recently who never cooked for himself.
Really?
He would just take all the leftover food from work and take it home with him.
Oh my gosh.
That's like, sometimes that's a big mood. Like
Fridge Bandit. Oh my god.
I think the only thing he knew how to make for himself was a bowl of cereal.
Oh
See,
god.
like
Oh,
that's
no,
not even
okay.
cooking. You need to know how to make one thing before you
Excuse
just
me,
learn
there
how
is
to-
a very
this is my-
precise cereal to milk ratio that needs to
I
be
mean, I guess.
preserved.
Here's my recipe for making cereal. Step 1, get a bowl. Step 2, put the cereal in.
Yeah, but
Okay.
like you never know. Maybe like he puts the milk in first, like a savage.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my god, don't even like bring that idea up. I'm scared. It's gonna be the pineapple pizza debate all over
Oh
again.
gosh, don't get
Oh, yes,
anyone started.
Listen.
Wasn't there a tournament about that? About the
Yes.
pizza?
Probably.
Yeah,
yeah.
pineapple. I will say for the record, pineapple won that. No matter what anybody says,
Yeah,
that is the hill-
pineapple on pizza.
that is the hill I will die on.
Thank you, Chris.
You
I wish I
better,
could
you
high
better
five
remember
you.
that.
I wish I could high five you through this screen right now.
Hell yeah.
I never thought I loved you this much, but it turns out I could love you even more.
I mean, pineapple on pizza is good. Like,
It's hella good.
Hell yeah. Here's the part where Eterna says, I think it's gross.
No, I like. You know what? I'm good with whatever y'all want. My boyfriend's the one who likes it on there, and I will totally eat it. I don't have really a strong opinion either way. You can have it, you cannot have it. Totally
Some
up to you.
Pizza on
I
pineapple.
don't mess with
I
olives
am
on
a
pizza.
fence rider when it comes to pineapple on pizza. Do not make me choose. It's fine and it's not fine.
Oh
That's
my
fine.
god, I've never heard of the term fence rider before now, and I kind of like it.
Like, Eterna's bringing some really good, like, flavor and whatnot to this episode, so I'm really excited for it. I'm learning all sorts of new phrases.
This is what you get when you're raised in the South and you're only surrounded by, your people who speak your language, and then you go online and you're like, oh, so you all think I sound crazy. All right, then.
I was gonna say, what was that thing you were talking about in the cooking channel recently where it was, like, a sauce versus a gravy or something like that with Demi?
Oh, goodness. Was it like, I don't know. And I'm going to have to find that. I feel like I remember that discussion going down. Was it, no, it was the difference between, like cornbread dressing and like stuffing. Was that it?
Yes, that's
Yes,
what
it
it
was that. Yes.
That was amazing. I'm just like, I'm so in love with any sort of like different like dialect things, like the whole like, like soda versus pop versus just calling it cola and stuff
pop
like
is
that.
only like a Western Canada thing.
If
or-
it fizzes, it's a
is it?
Coke. And then you have to specify. Do you
It's
mean
a Coke.
It's a Coke. Yeah, it's a Coke. Like I'm
it's not
drinking
a Coke if it's like
I'm
7-Up.
drinking a vanilla Coke right now, an actual vanilla Coca-Cola. But if I want something carbonated, I'm going to say, I want a Coke. And then I'm going to go into my fridge and get a Dr. Pepper out.
Oh my
It's not a
god.
Coke. That's a soft drink.
No, what? You can't just say soft drink. That's
Yes,
so
you can.
extra.
Yes, you can. That's
so
the umbrella
extra.
term.
Everyone says that here. Everyone says
Or
it's a soft
soda.
drink. No, it's soft drink.
It's soda. It's just like, I want a soda. Like, no, I want a Coke.
Well, you know
Come
what?
on, a
You know
sody
what?
pop.
The
Yeah,
worst one.
sody pop.
The worst one is when people just say, "I want to pop." That's the one that I'm not crazy.
You want to
about.
pop what?
Yeah.
I want to pop off, dude.
I'm gonna oh my god.
God.
Oh my lord.
You're now
crazy.
regretting inviting us.
No,
Oh heck
fine.
no. Oh my god, are you kidding me? This is a blast.
But there's still one thing this episode is missing, though. Eterna. It starts with an N.
Oh my god!
What are you talking about?
Yes.
Oh.
The nut button makes an appearance.
nut.
I'm glad that he was invited to this podcast.
I mean, he was the I mean, honestly, we only invited you for the nut button. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's
He's
Yeah.
the real.
You
he's
can
the
go
real
now.
DV celebrity.
That's
You
pretty
can
You're,
go
you're
now.
not wrong. He really is special.
I cannot tell you how many times after you bought it and posted about it, I kept taking it over to my fiance and I was like, can I have? Can I have? He goes, are you going to wake me up in the middle of the night with the nut button? I'm like, I can't guarantee that I won't.
You know, this is what happens when I buy way too much stuff on Amazon and people give me Amazon gift cards as presents and I just don't know what to spend it on. So I'm like, a nut button, a 10-pack of OK hands that go on your fingers.
What?
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
take
no.
all of that.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is. It's actually on my wish list right now.
Oh my god. Okay.
You mean like the tiny baby hands you can put on your fingers?
Yeah, they
Those
make them in
ones?
all different like hand motions and shapes. It's so funny.
Oh my god,
my
I need
God.
I need a bunch with like middle fingers to put on each of my fingers, and then I need a bunch to put on my toes. Just walk around like that. I'm a walking middle finger. Or like a hang ten. Just chill.
Yeah. So like since we're talking about nonsense, what's you guys' favorite moments in DB since you joined?
I think my favorite moments, I mean, this might seem a little like corny and cliche, but the very first kind of team versus team within Death Blossom's environment I had was like some little show match between the Death Blossom admins and me and a bunch of other girls, and just based off that experience, it created a bond between us that has lasted over a really long time. Like Luna was part of that, Broad was part of that. They're both members of Death Blossoms that are, I value them greatly to this day. And just being able to be in an environment where you can find people who are so like on your wavelength, to create those kind of like lasting friendships. I think that first moment where I kind of got thrust into it, like, oh, I'm playing Zenyatta, time to pop off, make some friends. That was my one of my favorite moments, because it's it's to this day, I still feel the effect of that.
It's not corny. It's a good one.
It's corny.
It's not corny.
If you're hearing this, Broad, don't laugh at me, okay, bro? Please.
It's okay. She yeeted into the sky as Baby Diva and landed straight into a Junkrat trap on stream.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because probably some of my favorite parts of this community are just when we get to be silly and do stupid things, like all the times I've yelled at Nami for walking into Junkrat traps, and the time we had pugs and someone joined with an Elmo voice, and I laughed so hard they had to ask if I was okay, because I could not stop laughing.
Remember, I was going through the DB like moments.
Yes, and you were like,
on the
what
Twitch,
is
and I'm like,
this?
what was that about? And you had to explain it to me because you were like dying. And
I
I'm
really
like, what?
was. I literally could not breathe. I was laughing so hard. It's just things like that. I remember one tournament we had where I was placed on a team, and there were 6 of us, and we had to come up with a team name, and we decided we were going to be for Bjorn. And we took it from the losers bracket and won everything. We memed the entire time. We had a great time. We were laughing. We played Torb every single map for some point of, like, some range of time. It was incredible, and that was probably the most fun I've ever had. Like, playing the game seriously, but also still, like, having enough fun to actually not get mad at anything bad that happened. I mean, we were just having a blast, and I will never forget that.
Like there was a Torb in every game.
Yes, we had somebody play Torb at least every game. We had the Death Blossoms chat. This was all being streamed. We had the chat, like, if you've ever watched Overwatch League, they'll usually have some like thing that they spam that's like spam this emoji for and then a reason. And we had spam this corn to help Forbjorn, and it was the funniest thing ever. And man, that was great. Just, I love that not only do we have serious tournaments where we're like, yeah, let's win for honor and glory, let's do it. And then we have silly tournaments that's like the old people versus the kids, and like pineapple on pizza versus no pineapple on pizza. And then we have like the banhammer. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's great to have some variety where it's not always, when you have a tournament, it's not always serious and for, a very specific reason. Sometimes it's just to goof around.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I'm just imagining the old days of yore where you could have 6 Torbjorns, and I'm scared. But so we wanted to talk to you, as well as your experience in DB, about your creative endeavors, because both of you are amazing artists in your own right, though in pretty different areas. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on, like, sort of explain to the audience, like, what it is you do for art. I know, Kris, you mentioned doing freelancing before your current more steady job. If you'd like to start off with talking about your artwork.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, of course, like a lot of artists out there, I first got into art because I saw some animes on the TV, and I was like, yo, that looks really cool, I want to draw some. So, I mean, I really started developing as an artist from, I'd say, around age 11. But it was always, a matter of like, draw what you see. So like drawing from comic books or TV or things like that, and just like copying that way. but it was only when I started freelancing. I started freelancing like early 2016. It was only around that time that I really started like getting into the more professional, like, okay, you want me to draw something for you that you designed? Yeah, sure, we can do that. It's only because of that kind of rigor that my art started to kind of really develop into something like more, professional quality, because it was a lot of practice. I had to do a lot of like, studies and things like that. But I enjoyed it because like when it comes to art, it's always a matter of what kind of learner you are. There's some people who enjoy the tutorials, and there's some people who enjoy just learning by doing. And I feel fortunate to prefer a sense of structure in how I learn with art. So with every kind of commission that I had to do some research, I had to look up references and things like that, and just internalizing that kind of knowledge and adding it to my visual library. It's kind of like ramped up my skills, and I'm getting paid for it, which is cool. But yeah, one thing that really inspired me, like really upped it up to 11 for me, was getting into League of Legends back in 2012. That's what really, before I started doing commissions, that's what really pushed me to get better at art, because I was like, yo, these splashes are so cool. I love Riot art style, and because it was kind of similar to World of Warcraft, I started getting like influenced by Blizzard art style too. So like what I mentioned before with like, oh my god, Overwatch looks so pretty, I want to get into this game. Those are kind of the catalyst for how I started to ramp up and be like, okay, maybe I can freelance. And then with the freelance, I started getting some more basic knowledge, like going back to perspective, going back to anatomy and things like that, until I got to where I am now, where I started, working on my portfolio and then sending out applications. And now I have like a 2D artist job at a mobile game studio. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get that bread.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I don't regret how it went for me. I mean, it's had its ups and downs, but in the end, I've always valued what I was able to take from it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I wanted to add I've been like, just kind of a casual artist my whole life. And the thing that always boggles my mind when it comes to your work, Kris, is your work on perspective. That is just something like my brain has never been able to grasp. When you posted that first big, like, final portrait of, what was it, like the two elves?
Oh god, that was so
the caravan,
good.
That image. Oh my god, I'll just look that up on your Twitter sometimes. Like, damn, look at that. Like, it really feels
draw
like
a
I'm
lot,
up there with
but
them.
I don't have the patience for like big pieces like that, especially backgrounds. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
I mean, the thing is, like, that's kind of goes back to my basis in like Riot splash art, where I started off. My starting point was knowing that these kinds of things take minimum like 20 hours of working on one thing. So like, it was a matter of like trading my mental stamina, like, like you can get burned out on a picture, you can. And so, there's some artists who like rotate between different like work in progress and things like that. But I've always been a kind of
20 hours is not even long. Like I spend like, sometimes I'm just drawing 2 characters, no background, and I take like 70 hours for like one piece. I'm like, 20 hours?
Well, the thing is that like 20 hours is the result of like kind of consolidating a lot of like drills and things like that. The perspective thing, it's funny that you mention it, because every perspective piece that I've ever done, I've done it because I know that I suck at it. So I have this little like tiny tutorial book on perspective that my mom bought me from this generic art shop like X years ago, and I was like, you know what, let me give this a flip through, let me try and copy the diagrams and try and wrap my head around it. And ever since then, it's clicked for me more and more, to the point where I can tell you 100% that taking maybe 1 or 2 days to just work on perspective is what wholeheartedly resulted in the creation of that picture. Because once I took like maybe 2 hours to kind of get that mental block out of the way, I could build those kinds of things from scratch on my own, and it's like exponentially improved to things that I've been able to do. It's really heightened my freedom artistically, which in turn, makes me enjoy myself more, which in turn makes me want to make more art. So it's like, if there's, some manner of patience that you can tap into just to get that basic fundamental understanding, it will like unlock so many things down the line. And I took that risk because I had no idea, you know, like, oh man, is reading this book really going to help me? I had no idea, but I stuck with it. You know, if something didn't make sense to me, I looked it up. I looked up YouTube and stuff like that. And, you know, after that, it was smooth sailing, more or less.
Do you still like use reference though for like poses and stuff like that? Because when I draw, like I know like sometimes, you know, like when imposter syndrome, when like you use reference, you're like, oh, people are gonna know that I use the reference, and like I'm not actually good, I'm just like looking at reference.
Oh,
but
of
like
course.
apparently like a lot of people do.
Absolutely. Listen, there is this stigma that if you cannot draw it straight up from your brain, you're not a real artist. But at the same time, there's people from Ubisoft, there's people from Sony who worked on Spider-Verse, uploading their videos on Twitter where they recorded themselves as reference for their own animations. Like every single professional uses reference. Every single splash art uses reference. And it's like, it's a matter of asking yourself, okay, would I rather be shamed for using reference, or would I rather be, you know, at peace with myself knowing that I sought out the correct thing that would help me make this picture? Like, you know, nobody's like perfect. You know, you have some savants out there who can draw an entire cityscape from memory. That's cool and all, but like everything that you do referencing, it just adds to your visual library. Like it's like the way that I like to explain it to my family who aren't artists is like, you know, okay, if I asked you as an adult, fully speaking the English language, to write out all the letters of the English alphabet, of course you could do that. You could probably do it upside down. You could probably do it backwards with some effort. And that's because of drilling it from childhood. So if you drill these things enough times correctly using reference, then you get to that point where you don't need reference. But all a lot of people see is that end point without understanding how you got there. So yeah, you should never be ashamed for using reference. I use reference every single day. I use reference for almost everything that I do. And
like there are some things that I don't need reference for anymore, like eyes and like the face. I don't usually use reference for that, but when I draw hands, I always use reference because they're just a nightmare. And my friend was giving me tips, and he's like, it's like the result that matters. Like no one's gonna care how you got to the result because that's the picture they're gonna see.
Absolutely.
Right? So as long as you're not copying someone else's art, there's nothing wrong with using reference.
And it's like, you know, a lot of people, they don't like take into account what the person has studied to get there. Like for instance, a lot of people would say, oh, you're using a 3D model as reference for your perspective, environment, background, that's cheating. And I could say, you know, okay, you want me to draw this from scratch? I will plot out the perspective on my own from scratch, and I will arrive at the same result.
But it'll take longer.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's like at that point, you know, who am I trying to impress? Why should I care? Like just for the sake of, you know, making sure that
proving that
making sure that I took the traditionalist route. Like the person who says that, I would ask them, okay, so does that mean that you walk everywhere because you think taking a car is cheating, or do you hunt your own food every day because you think using a fridge is cheating? Like it's a ridiculous argument. So yes, good job using that reference. Everybody use reference. Okay, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
It just makes me think of the argument that I hear a lot of digital artists running to, and like, oh, you drew that on a computer? That's easy.
Oh yeah, it's garbage.
That's
From
not
everything
true.
I've seen, that's so completely not
honestly,
true.
I have an easier time drawing with a pen than drawing on the computer. I don't know why, but because I grew up, I would draw like while I was in class, and that's what I've always done. So like when I started drawing in Photoshop, it's just completely different. You know, you're looking at the screen, you're not looking at your hand like at the paper and stuff. I don't know, it's completely different.
Yeah, for sure. In my childhood, of course, I didn't have my own computer. I got my first tablet at 16, so that's, you know, some years ago now. I kind of left traditional art behind, and honestly, like, it's not pretty. Like, I suck at it. But that's okay, because, you know, you just work with what you're most comfortable in. It doesn't mean that you have to be an art god equally across every medium. So, you know, you just do you. The most important thing is, like, having a good time, you know?
So we're like all muted there.
Sorry, I was muting because my cat's being
It's
a little
fine.
shit. I love you, Aria, but you're being a little shit.
It's okay.
But Eterna, I'd like to hear about your work, because you run a whole like shop.
Yeah, so I always, like Kris said, I've always been pretty creative. I also drew a lot in middle school into high school because of my interest in anime and other animated works. But when I was in 10th grade in high school, I made the decision to change from going to public school to homeschooling. And that really changed the amount of free time I had to do things like draw on my notes and things like that, because my school day was a lot shorter. So instead of drawing, I've more focused myself on crafting, because I had a lot more free time to actually put into creating things. So first it was sewing, because my grandmother and great grandmother both had a very huge background in sewing, with working at an actual garment factory, and then my grandmother learning from her. So I always had a bit of a side that wanted to make things, I guess I should say. So when I finally started, being at home more, I decided to use that to, not only just make things that were cool, but make things that not only I, but other people were interested in. So I started with embroidery. I first made my Etsy shop to sell iron-on patches. I had a few designs that I made. This was during the Pokemon Go craze, so I had all of the team logos that I would make and sell, and they did pretty well. Of course, I didn't make a whole lot of money. I made just enough to cover my materials and pay my fees and maybe a little bit extra, but I wasn't really in it for the money at that point. I was in it just for the experience and to have fun. And then I ended up going off to college, and one of the things that I asked for before I left was a vinyl cutting machine, because that's the next medium I wanted to get experience in. So my mom actually ended up giving that to me as an early Christmas present, since I was moving away from home and wouldn't have time to mess with it. And as I was off at college, all I could think of was what could I make with it when I go back home, because I didn't have anything to do at school. I couldn't bring that with me. So that's when my creative mind just like went to work. I had all these things planned out that I wanted to make. I was on Pinterest looking at different things that people were doing. I was into it fully. Even though I couldn't physically do it, I had my ideas in my head, and I was ready to hit the ground running when I actually had access to my things again. So when I finally moved out of the dorms and got my own apartment, when I first moved out, I didn't have a job, and I didn't have a job for the first couple of months that I was living alone. And thankfully, my parents were helping me a bit, but they were only helping me pay my bills. I didn't really have anything extra to, fund anything else I was interested in, like spending all my money at Target and Amazon. So I decided to use my crafting to help me make a little bit of money on the side for things like, buying things at Target and on Amazon, and also to pay some bills
like the nut button.
Yes, like the nut button, and to pay, my internet bill, since I wanted fiber internet, and that was a bit more expensive than just the basic internet that I needed. And, it was always a side hustle for me, and I think it still will be a side hustle for me. I really like going to work and coming home and just being able to work on things that, I've thought up, or that people have been like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they did this? And someone will make a mock-up, or I'll make a crappy mock-up in Photoshop and be like, I could totally make this. And then, get the materials, get them together, and then make it a real thing. And it's just really fulfilling to turn an idea or a crappy drawing, or, your MS Paint masterpiece into like a real tangible thing, and be like, wow, I made that, and people want to give me money for it. This is crazy.
It's kind of like when they made the Diva short, and everyone wanted the hat and the jacket.
Yes, and I just remember one of the things that really got me into Overwatch League is when they announced the Atlanta team, because I'm from I live in Chattanooga, so that would be the closest team geographically to me, and I was so excited that the South, nothing against you, Florida or Texas, but the actual South got an Overwatch League team. And the first thing I wanted to do was just like rep that logo and that brand on me. I just wanted to like fully be behind it. But they announced in like October, and Overwatch League didn't start until February. So I knew I had at least that long to wait until I could get anything. So the first thing I did was look online for you know, a lightweight jacket I could wear. It was October, November, you know, it was cold. I was like, I would totally wear a jacket that I made. So I researched and I ordered one and I made it. And literally, like, in the first 3 days of the team being announced, I had a piece of merch that I made that people went crazy over. And it was just really cool. Not only that I thought of something and that fast I was able to make it. It was not only that, just people also were like, whoa, I totally want one of those and they should hire you to do their merchandise. And I was just like, no, I'm just a college student.
Did it get like retweeted by the team?
Oh yeah, the team ate it up, and this was before they had even announced players. And I just remember one of the first people that made content for the Atlanta Reign as a fan. He mentioned me in one of his videos, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we don't know anything about the team besides like their logo and their name, and I'm already being called out for like doing that. And I don't know, it was a crazy experience. And just even the things that I make now, every time I make something and someone buys it and posts a review and a picture, I was like, wow, so someone really did buy that piece of clothing I made or that decal I made and actually put it on their car. There's someone in whatever state or whatever country with my work on, you know, something they use every day or something that they wear. And that's just like mind blowing to me that people would want to give me their money for the things that I make.
I was going to say, one of my favorite things now that it's starting to get cold here is I could start wearing the fucking bomb-ass diva jacket you made for me.
It's funny you mentioned that because, you know, I made mine and I still haven't sold the first one that I made. Sometimes the other things that I make, I will sell the one that I made for myself just because I don't need a copy of every single jacket that I make. But the diva jacket I've actually never worn out of the house, which is very sad because that's really what like jump started all of this. And it's still to this day like one of my most favorite things that I've made. But something about me that wears a lot of Overwatch clothing, that has an Overwatch backpack, that has an Overwatch keychain, and Overwatch things on my car, I'm just like, do I really need to wear the diva jacket? Is that going... What?
Like,
who am I going to look like when I wear that with all of this? I mean, Diva is my homegirl. I have a shrine for her in my bedroom. She has a whole bookshelf. But that may be too much.
One jacket is too much.
I went out wearing like my McCree t-shirt with my Black Watch sweater and my Black Watch hat, so like I'm not much better.
Yeah, as honestly as so Uniqlo has all their like Blizzard stuff that they started doing recently this year, and I live relatively close to a Uniqlo, so you best believe that as soon as they dropped the Moira shirt, I went and pre-ordered that shit online. I wasn't gonna wait.
Like, I didn't see those.
It's like purple and it's got her
hand on it. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like oh my god, it's the one good piece of Moira merchandise and I own it. And every time I do laundry, it's like the first shirt I put on after a fresh load of laundry because I love it so much.
Immediately. They had one that was navy with a pocket that just had the little bunny on it, and I was like,
yes,
I can wear that to work. Yes, I'm buying that.
I do that with my Monster Hunter shirts. It doesn't scream
like I'm a nerd. Yes. Basically, it's just it looks like a normal shirt.
Yeah, I'm into the super covert, like, nerdy things. Like, it sucks that they mainly make stuff like that for guys. Like, I have so many button-up shirts. Like, I have a Harry Potter one. I have a PlayStation one. And you can tell when you get really close that that's what it is. But from far away, you can't really tell. It just sucks that they're always made for guys, so the buttons are on the wrong side. And I'm like, yeah, y'all know I'm wearing a guy's shirt, but like, doesn't it look bomb as fuck? Like, come on, you know you want this.
Yeah, because every time I see new product from like Overwatch League, I'm like, this was clearly not designed with women in mind. Like,
absolutely.
What was it, those hockey jerseys or whatever they released recently? They're ass ugly.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Overwatch, but like, I think for World of Warcraft, there was a lot of men's and women's. There was the same model for men and women. Mm-hmm. Like, I have an Alliance sweater and like the zippers on the right side because it's like a women's sweater, but I bought the Blackwatch one, but there was no like men's or women's. I just got a small, but the zippers on the other side, I'm like, I guess I didn't even know that the zipper was, like, I knew about the buttons being on the other side, but I didn't know the zippers were also inverted on like men's sweaters. I'm like, I guess that's how it is.
Oh my god, wait, are they really? Like, I'm putting my hands down near my belly button pretending to put a zipper on. And I'm thinking about it. I think you're right.
Yeah, because
That's so
usually, like,
weird.
because I don't know why, but like when I'm standing, I usually like fiddle with the bottom of my jacket, and like usually the piece that moves is on the left side, right? So I kind of like mess with it, and now it's not there, so it's kind of weird. It's
Oh,
on the
that's
other
so
side,
weird.
yeah.
This is a call to action for all garment makers. Stop making us choose. Just pick it and just don't make it a guy or girl thing. Just give it to us,
Please.
Yeah,
please.
seriously.
Yeah, because
Please.
there's shirts, there's Overwatch shirts on the store, and then there's like ones that are like, I know there's like a May shirt, but it's like a weird fit for girls, like kind of like a super
Yes.
big neck.
I call those watermelon necks because they're
Watermelon
so
necks.
big.
Right?
They're so big. Like it's just like your head's the size of a watermelon and you stretched it out. Like I hate stuff like that.
It's like they're designed for your bra straps to show or
Yes.
something. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know.
There's a reason I buy like a majority of my clothes from the boys section. It's because I like the way they fit better, and two, they're usually way cheaper and way better made.
The only problem is that sometimes even if I get a small in men's sizes, it's too big
Still
for
too
me.
big.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So I have to hope that it'll shrink when I wash it or something.
So I guess the both of you were talking about how Chris, I know obviously you've gone full time, and do you still plan on doing a lot of like freelance and commission stuff in your off time now that you're working full time, or are you just kind of taking a break from that? Because I know, because we are friends, it was kind of driving you up the wall with how much freelance work that you had.
Well, I've kind of come to a point now where a lot of people, like, the typical perception with freelance is that you kind of take whatever comes, you have a bunch of different like short jobs with some people, but I've come to a comfortable place now where I've had 2 clients that I've worked with for like over a year each, just doing all the art for their really big projects. So it's kind of like pseudo steady work, and in discussions with them, it's like they have enough art to see me through like for the foreseeable future. So it's like I've kind of luckily found this kind of steady thing where I don't really have to take commissions publicly anymore. I would of course like do it for friends or family or whatever, but just with these 2 projects I've got going on the side, I think that's enough for me. But when it comes to like personal arts, like of course I'm still like really big into video games, especially now that I have more time to play video games. Like of course I would like to get back to doing fan art for my favorite characters and stuff in the future, and if there's enough desire for it, of course I'd just like throw it up on an online store or something like that. Like I did the whole commission and convention circuit with prints that I did in the past before I just went full into freelancing rather than selling at conventions. And yeah, it's definitely something I could see myself doing, once things settle down a bit more, because I'm still kind of crazy with settling in after moving. But yeah, like I have ideas for like t-shirt designs and things like that just to play around with, maybe mouse pad designs, things like that I would just like kind of test the waters and see how people feel about it. But of course, definitely not at the breakneck pace that I was going before, because it was definitely unsustainable, and I'm still kind of adjusting to having a regular like 9 to 5 mentality and actually having a weekend, because I worked every single day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Like as someone who's done like, well, I still do sometimes. I do translation, and it's mostly like freelance also. And sometimes you'll have like a few like short contracts, but a lot of time it's just super long contracts that never end, like translating a whole catalog or something. So you don't really have a lot of free time when you have like deadlines for all that stuff, and people think, oh, like you can work whenever you want. Like sure, but you still have to like make sure that you're not in a rush at the end because you like you were being too lazy.
It's not. I mean, it is not a walk in the park. Like people are like, oh, that's so cool. You get to work in your pajamas if you want to, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but I don't get benefits, I don't get insurance,
exactly
sometimes there's clients who are a pain in the ass to work with, so yeah, it's a lot like having a job that you hate. And I think something that people need to kind of understand about art, especially when it's something that someone chooses to do professionally, is that even if I love art, even if I want to draw until the day I die, like sometimes it sucks, sometimes it's not fun, and sometimes it can be like, wow, I really just want to go and do something else. But yeah, it's important to kind of find that separation now that, especially that I'm in a full-time job, find that separation between drawing art for work and drawing stuff, for fun, or just not drawing at all, because I think that downtime is also important.
Yeah, for sure.
You gotta take care of yourself. That is true. And Eterna, you had mentioned it's mostly like a side hustle for you. Would you ever like to see it go full-time for you, or?
I think it would be, I wouldn't be mad if it did, but I am almost done with school. I'm going for a computer science degree, so obviously that's where my heart, my interest lies, and I do work like a corporate desk job in computer science. But I think the part of me that really wanted to have a side hustle like this is that I was raised, both of my parents owning their own business or working in our family businesses. So I wanted kind of the freedom that they had, that they were able to do what they enjoy. They were able to start their own business and grow it from there. And I always wanted something like that for myself. It's great to have a corporate job and benefits and, paid days off and all of that, but sometimes you don't always want to have to work for the big man, I really like the freedom that I have with my Etsy job and the extra income that it does give me. I've never once really promoted it, like ads or anything. I do social media posts a lot, but I've never gone out and like bought an ad and been like, hey, I'm advertising to you, come buy my things. I've just kind of let it grow naturally, and I use my hashtags and my keywords when I can, but I've never really pushed it to be my main source of income, because it's kind of scary having to depend on other people giving you money to make a living. I know at my job, whether I have a ton of stuff to do at work or if I don't have anything to do, I'm still taking home the same paycheck every week or 2 weeks. So while I do really enjoy what I do, I really like having the security of the job that I have, and the fact that I can kind of have the best of both worlds. If I want to invest more in my side hustle, I totally can. I just have to put my extra time into that. And if I want to step back, I can just say, gonna chill out on posting online about it for a little bit because I need a break, But it's nice to have, during the holidays when I'm buying gifts or things that other people are buying gifts too, so I can not only sell my things and make money and make them happy, but they can give me their money where I can treat all my friends with my extra money on the side. So I don't think I'll ever stop doing what I'm doing on the side, but I also wouldn't say that I'm necessarily planning on it becoming my main job in the future, because it's never been enough money for me to pay all of my bills in the first place. I don't even make enough on it to pay my rent, so I've always had to work. But I think really I'm happy with the balance that I have right now. Especially finally getting a job at the company I've worked for so many years as an intern. So it's been rewarding to not only have that, but also have my Etsy shop be as popular as it's gotten.
It's a bit of extra money when you want to treat yourself.
Right. It's so nice to have a little bit of side income that you really enjoy making that money. Not only do you enjoy getting it, you enjoy the process that you go through of getting that money. I enjoy making what I make and knowing that someone ordered this because they saw it and they really liked it and they're excited to get it. That makes me happy. But also just the fact that I have the freedom to do that. I have the ability to just make money on the side.
You wouldn't want it to come to a point where you don't like doing it anymore because
exactly
you're just doing the same thing over and over.
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh, I have to do another jacket.
Yes, and I'm glad that it's just enough work to keep me happy and motivated, and it's not enough work that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pack another X amount of Etsy orders. Oh no, I have fun with my little scratch map. Every time I get an order, I look and I'm like, where is this going to? Have I sent a package here before? I'm having fun with it, and I'm glad that I don't have to, be super laser focused on it and worry about how much it's making, because in the end, it's really just like a fun thing that I do on the side that also happens to make me money.
So you haven't been plugging it when you have like sign girl posts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll carry business cards around with me. I do have business cards. I do, some people will mention me when someone's like, oh, it'd be really cool if I had this, but it's made by Fanatics, so I know it won't last. And someone will be like, hey, Kelsey does this. And I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? I can totally do that for you. But it's also nice to not have to worry about like constantly making something new, constantly bringing new content because, you know, they may leave you or go to someone else if you're not keeping up with the times. It's just nice that it's there when I need it, but also I'm kind of allowed to step away from it if it's too much, or really, honestly, if I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't really feel hard committed to doing that. Like I have enough people to keep me afloat, but I don't feel like I have like a fan base that I need to support or give a lot to. It's really just my thing on the side. I think a lot of people know that it's just my thing on the side. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right, yeah. And I don't know, I like coming home from work and just being able to do that for fun. But also with crafting, some things can be really frustrating. Like sewing was one of those for me, and is really why I don't sew anymore. Is, you know, do you really want to rip all those seams out because you sewed this the wrong way?
It's funny because as like a cosplayer, I don't even like sewing.
Yes,
I like making all the armor and stuff.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like, every time
it's fun
I'm at
when
the
it comes
sewing
together, but when you're in the process of it, you're like,
exactly. It's like, yeah. Sewing is, I don't know. I'm sure people like it, but I don't think
sewing
it's fun. I like making the armor.
Yeah, it's
it's
a good skill to know, but oh my goodness, is it so frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I am absolute crap at it. And don't even get me started on how many knitting projects I've ripped up because I've like noticed one thing that is wrong.
Yep.
I'm like, there is a quick, easy fix, but I'm gonna know that mistake is there. I'm gonna be able to point it out in which specific row. I'm gonna rip out this thing that I just worked on for like 20 hours.
It's funny you mentioned that because I think my crafting is also, weirdly enough, a bit helped my crazy like perfectionism. I realized that, you know, it doesn't necessarily, while it's important for it to be up to the standards that I want to sell, I also know that the people that are buying it realize they're getting a handmade product. They don't expect it to be absolutely perfect. Like they're buying
Factory
it from
quality.
they don't think they don't buy it because it's coming from a store. They're buying it because it's coming from me. So I feel a little bit less pressure there on making mistakes or being like, hey, you know, this isn't my complete best work, but I'm still proud of it. And if you're not happy with that, I need you to tell me so I can fix it. And usually they're just like, what are you talking about? This is amazing. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I felt really bad about that when I shipped it out, but okay, thank you. You know,
as long as you just want it to be, you don't want it to fall apart when they get it.
Oh yes,
like,
of course.
Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever bought.
Yes, and I just remember the first time I got a 4-star review on Etsy, and I was like, oh no, I've completely just messed up this person's all their expectations, and oh no, they're never gonna order from me again. And it's because they were like, this isn't the size I thought it was, and then I remembered the size is on all of my listings. What do you mean you didn't know what size it was? It's right there.
Because I feel like it's better to just contact the seller and see if you can do something about it instead of giving like a bad review for like, you know, I don't know. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, there's an interesting level of transparency it seems like you need to have when you do this line of work, whether it's full-time or part-time. Like, you want to be able to communicate to somebody, you know, what an issue may be. Like, when I was getting my jacket from you, you were like, I'm just going to warn you, it's going to be really big.
Yeah.
So I knew what I was getting into.
Was that the mecha jacket? Or?
I actually had a custom order that got returned to me because the person didn't pay any custom fees on it, so it just got returned to sender. And when I got it, I figured that they would contact me pretty quickly to get it resent out because, you know, it was a custom order. They paid extra, and I couldn't refund it because it was custom, you know? So I literally had it in the shipping bag at my desk for probably 6 months, and Lynnda was just like, hey, could you make me a jacket? And I was like, what size?
I don't even remember what my response was, I think, other than like, hopefully something that's plus size, and you're like, this is like extra plus size. It big. I mean, I can practically wear it as a dress almost. It's amazing. It's my best wintertime outfit, especially when there's a con that I go to every January. So now that's my like number one thing I make sure to pack is my diva jacket.
Yes, and when people always ask me about like
January.
about sizes and sizing, and I was like, well, I'm a small usually, but I love the medium because it's just big enough that it's comfy and cozy, a little bit oversized, and it makes it a little bit cuter, a little oversized on you, especially the design of, you know, the cut of it, that it looks like a varsity jacket.
Yeah, I think it looks like I feel like it's not fashion is not anymore like where everything has to be like skin tight and like, you know, so it looks fine even if it's a bit loose on you.
What are you talking about? Women are not allowed to breathe. That's what women's fashion is. If you're above a size 7, you may as well be fucking dead.
Jeez.
Or I don't know what the new skinny standard is. I've never been skinny. I never will be skinny. I want to be fat and happy. And that's the tea from me.
Also, Linda was mentioning cons. I think, Eterna, you were saying that you were thinking of like going to a con and like you didn't know what kind of merch you would make for that because like usually make custom made stuff, so you didn't know like what kind of stock to keep.
Yeah, so especially with having like a vinyl cutting business, a lot of the stuff you make is either customized or like very specific, and I know myself, I have, I think, probably 60 different colors of things that I offer in vinyl, so it's hard to know what people are going to want before you go. So it's been hard for me to like decide to table when I know, number one, how much it's going to cost up front, and two, not knowing exactly what to bring, you know, what size, what color, because I just offer such a variety. It's really hard to offer all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's probably stuff that I think I told you already, like diva, like bunny heads and stuff like that. That might be the kind of stuff that would sell regardless. There's definitely some staples that I sell constantly in my shop, the same color, the same design, but it's just still the unknown of like what are they going to order, because I do offer so much. There's really endless possibilities of what I can make with what I have. You'd have to know what kind of people are going to attend the con and stuff like that.
It's also really hard for me to do that because I've actually never been to a con like that before. So my first one is at the end of this month, like ever. So that's kind of scary. So maybe that'll give me the little boost that I need to actually make the jump and get a table or start.
Don't get con plague.
You'll
get it, but don't get it.
I was thinking of getting a table, like splitting a table with my friend next year, because I've been wanting to like try selling my art a bit, but I was always at a point where I didn't think my art was good enough, and now I think I'm fine at a point where I'm like, okay, I think people might buy this, but like I don't know, it's still kind of scary.
Well, Kris, you have con experience. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is wanting to branch out into that? Like, what kind of cons have you been to?
I have been to almost exclusively anime conventions. My very first convention was 2014, and my last one that I actually tabled at was last year, 2018. So I've been going to them for about 4 years. And advice that I would give, man, very first convention, keep your expectations within reason. I mean, I don't have any hesitation in kind of sharing this experience, despite it being kind of a little bit embarrassing. But my very first convention was, you know, I was like, oh, you know, this is so exciting. There's going to be a bunch of people here who are like League of Legends, and oh, my art is League of Legends. So of course people want to buy my stuff, and of course I didn't do as well as I thought I would, and that knocked me off that pedestal quite a bit. You know, whatever ego I did have back then was wounded quite badly, but I learned a lot from it. And since then, it's not like I would say I'm kind of cynical, but, you know, I always try to be like, okay, if I break even, it's a good weekend. And if it ever surpasses that, then I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm chilling. Like, I made something out of this. So I'd say keep your expectations, like, within reason, especially for your first convention, because, I mean, like, it is a really, really saturated market now.
Yeah.
Like, there are just way too many online tutorials, YouTube videos for people to not have some kind of basic grasp of art. And even within the past couple months, I didn't table there, but I went to a convention in Montreal. The bar.
Wait, when?
Otakuthon in...
Oh, I go every year.
Oh, yeah? Sweet. Well, yeah, I was there. I was just hanging out with my girlfriend because she has a table there.
Oh, cool.
And the bar is so high now. Like, these artists who have never had any formal training or gone to school or whatever.
Yeah, there's a ridiculous amount
they are
of artists there.
super skilled. And, I mean, as fun and, like, you know, lighthearted as conventions are, if you want to get into the market as a convention artist, these are people that you're competing with. So, for your first convention, you know... bring your A game, do some research, see if there's something new that just came out or is coming out soon that you could like build some hype around for your next print. Because I remember in the year of our Lord and Savior 2016, the first convention after Overwatch came out, it was everywhere. Every single
I totally believe that.
Every single table had some kind of Overwatch stuff, and even people who never drawn video game art before, they had an Overwatch print at their table. It was selling like hotcakes. No matter the art quality, it was selling like crazy. So keep in mind your convention dates, see what's hot, what's coming up, try to incorporate that into your sales somehow. If it can catch someone's eye, like, hey, I recognize that. A lot of times, convention goers gravitate towards what they know, so that's why fan artists do exponentially better than original art people. Like, if you're an original artist going to convention, you have to be an art god, like, literally, because people, like, you know, they're like, oh, Naruto, oh, Inuyasha, oh, Pokemon. I want that. Like, that's the hook for them. Mm-hmm. So I'd say keep up with, you know, the gamer or anime enthusiast pop culture, because it can be a grind to like keep abreast of that wave and make sure that your sales are consistently high. I know some artists who going to conventions is their full-time job. Like they go to minimum
so
like 10 to 15 conventions a year, and they basically live in hotels because they're permanently in transit onto their next convention, and they go deep into like, okay, what's hot right now. They scroll through Twitter, they scroll through Pinterest, like seeing what people are into so that they can just keep ahead of that. So yeah, that's how you do it. And honestly, I knew after a while that it wasn't for me, because you know, my main stock was League of Legends and then some Overwatch, but League of Legends is so ubiquitous. Like there's always gonna be people there's always gonna be people who love League of Legends, and that's what saved me, because I knew that I would not have like one, the passion, and two, the mental stamina to keep churning out prints for whatever was popular within the next coming month. Like I can't do it. Like there's people out there who have the propensity for that. Like they will be able to draw something good no matter what it is. But if my heart's not in it, if it's something I'm not interested in, I'm not super sure how well it's going to turn out. But, you know, like there's people who are like that.
That's kind of like what you were saying earlier, where sometimes it's not fun because you don't always get to draw stuff that you like. Sometimes you just have to do something because someone's paying you for it, but it's not necessarily what you would want to be drawing.
Yeah, like in every single aspect of my creative field, like my full-time job right now, I have a lot of freedom in terms of I both do polished assets, but I also design them. So I have that kind of freedom at work. And then on top of that, like my client stuff, like some of it is a lot of Witcher related. Like I love the Witcher game, so I have a lot of fun with that. And then it's just like I'm fortunate that everything that I have like my fingers dipped in is relevant to my interests. But you know, if you're trying to make it as a convention artist, just keep in mind that also there may be times where something is extremely popular and
but you don't like it, but you still have to draw it.
You'll have to do that. So I guess kind of keep that in mind as well. So yeah, that's my advice basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like you were saying, people go to every convention. I cosplay, but I only usually cosplay at Otaku-san. And maybe like a couple side conventions. Like I do maybe like 1 or 2 conventions a year, but I have friends who are constantly, they finish a convention and they're already working on a costume for the next convention, and they're constantly like you said, like living in hotels pretty much, because they're always on the road going to conventions. And I love cosplaying with this. That I would never be able to do that. I don't want to do that every day, like all year round.
I mean,
that sounds so stressful.
But like for them, I mean, those people who go to conventions, like double digits conventions a year, like I mean, they're seasoned veterans, and they rake it in. Like they make 5 figures a convention, and that's what makes it fine for them to like buy all these flights just continually through the year. So it's like it's you go hard and fast, and I've never been close enough to any one of those artists to ask, like, how many years do you think you can keep this up? But I mean, they clearly have a system working out for them.
I'd burn out within a few months.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, also I wanted to ask, since you've sold art at prints and stuff at conventions, like how many prints of each do you usually bring like as a stock to sell at conventions? Because that's not a number that you would know unless you've done it before.
Yeah, very first convention, I would say whatever your table cost is, I would take that figure and then kind of stack that against what you plan to sell each print as. Like whatever, if it's like $15, $20, and say, okay, total prints I would have to sell to make, let's say $500 for a table cost. You kind of take that as your total print number, and then among that print number, you look at your catalog and you kind of scope out, okay, based on what I've been seeing on Twitter and social media in general, which of these do I think is going to be the most popular seller? And then for your first convention, I would say you take maybe like out of, if every print that you have is an equal number, you would bring maybe like 10 to 15 extra of that one. Yeah,
Okay.
and
Wow,
that's about it, really.
That's like not a lot when you think about it.
It's not, but like for, if you sell 10 prints at, $15, that's already 150, and 150 out of 500 is still a decent chunk, especially if you get through that like maybe on the Friday or early Saturday, then you're already a decent part of the way there before the main traffic starts coming in. So I mean, first convention is always going to be a toss-up, but after that is over, at least you'll have a starting point for data. Like, okay, in terms of my prints, this one, contrary to what I thought would be the bestseller, this one was the bestseller, and you analyze it, see how it stood out from the rest of your prints. Is it just the subject material? Is it how you executed it? Is it in terms of where it was displayed on your table? And you kind of take all those things into account for your next run.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thanks.
No problem.
I'm so not in tune with any of this kind of stuff, and it's honestly really fast. Like, from a consumer standpoint, because, like, I will literally, the only con I really go to is MagFest every year. I will literally just spend hours in the marketplace just looking at things.
What's MagFest?
Music and Games Festival.
Oh, okay.
It's in National Harbor.
Okay.
In near DC. It's like, was relatively small, slowly getting scary big. But I just love spending my time there looking at the things everyone has made. And I always tell myself, I'm only going to buy this many prints. And I come home with way too many. And I think there's something really true, I think, Kris, to what you're saying about, looking at what's popular online and whatnot. But nothing has delighted me more than finding an artist that draws that one specific thing I haven't seen art of anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
The entire
that's
convention.
Very true.
It made me so happy.
There's also like the flip side, like for instance, as exclusively a League of Legends artist at the time, I started seeing trends where like everyone did kind of like the same generic pinup of like Ari or Katarina,
the Fox girl.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point you guys have seen like that girl with the fox ears and a red outfit with like 9 tails. Like,
yes.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
And I noticed like like everyone's drawing all these pinup girls, but no one's drawing like badass dudes. So I did that, and I built up my own kind of niche audience who were looking for these kind of badass mains that they had that they weren't seeing art of, because people were by default trying to cater to the kind of like attractiveness and sex appeal of very high profile characters. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna take this popular game, but I'm also gonna go a little bit deeper and cater to what I feel people want to see that they're not seeing, and it actually worked out pretty well for me. So yeah, you can kind of take that kind of avenue as well and understand that there's some people who aren't being catered to if there's like a really ubiquitous thing like Overwatch, but no one draws Winston, and then if you draw Winston, you'll have all the Winston main coming to your table and dropping their cash.
It reminds me like the first year I was looking for Overwatch prints, I was looking for Reinhardt prints, and I couldn't find any. Everyone was drawing like Widow, Tracer.
Because they are attractive and they're trying to bank on the sex appeal, which is, it's a very viable strategy. But there's no harm in like also trying to make yourself stand out from the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminded me last year, and I wish I could remember the name. There was an artist last year at well, not last year, but this, previous January MagFest, where their whole thing was they did prints and coasters based on Overwatch characters that were also mixed drinks or liquors.
Oh, okay.
I think it was actually just not mixed drinks, just like hard liquors and stuff like that. Oh, that's awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, like putting a spin on it.
I'll piss myself if I find a good Moira print this next year.
Putting a spin on it is always a good way to kind of catch people's eye. So, yeah.
This is your sign, you guys. Pin up Teemo print. Do it.
Yes. I was about to say, when are the sexy vinyls coming?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you want to make me some Mech Hanzo vinyls?
I mean,
can you make body pillowcases?
Dude, I've actually been trying out sublimation recently, so maybe eventually, but maybe not like full-size body pillow, but like pillowcase.
I'll take it.
I'm curious, like, how does the vinyl machine work exactly?
So a lot of it is just like you upload your design. You can really use any image as long as it has like clear definable lines.
It's like a software that comes with it?
So I personally use a Cricut. I know there's a few other brands. Silhouette has one, and there's a Brother Scan and Cut, but I personally use the Cricut. I feel that it's the most like user friendly. There's a lot of tutorials and things online for it. You have like an online interface where you upload all of your designs, your images, and then you just place them on a canvas, and when you decide that everything's on there the way you want it, it's literally as easy as just pressing go. It arranges everything onto your mat, so you put your vinyl on a sticky mat and feed it into the machine. It kind of looks like a printer, but not exactly, because there is no like print part of it. It's just a cutter. Okay. So the way that a printer works, so you have like the carriage with the cartridges that go back and forth, it's kind of like that, but the main cartridge has a tiny blade in it, and that's what actually does it. So it's not just vinyl that you can do with machines like that. You can also make oh goodness, you can make everything. I've seen people cut their fabric with it to do sewing projects. Like if they do applique, they'll cut the fabric on their Cricut so that it's perfect, and then they can just put it in their embroidery machine to do applique. I've seen people make like bows with it. I've seen people really like, the possibilities are endless. You can cut all kinds of stuff with it.
So you basically have to buy like vinyl sheets and okay.
I mainly deal with like sticky vinyl, so this would be like what you think of a sticker, but it's just it's vinyl, so it's plastic technically. And then iron-on vinyl, which is activated by heat. I have a heat press,
like what you put on a shirt.
What you would put on a shirt. You can also do, I've seen some people adhere iron-on vinyl to wood. I have no idea how they do that, but it intrigues me a lot, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. And like I said, sublimation I've been getting into recently, which is actually infusing ink. So with iron-on vinyl, that's more of, really at a very basic level of explaining it, it's basically melting plastic onto a shirt. It sounds like that's like the worst idea ever, but it's really economical. And if you do it right and really know what you're doing, it can stay for an extremely long time, or forever, even through the washes and everything. But sublimation is coming up, getting bigger recently, because Cricut has officially put out a sublimation line of things that you can buy at the store. Sublimation used to be almost like exclusively for people who had either sublimation printers or an online resource to buy sublimation prints, but it works exactly the same way. It's applied with heat, but you can also do sublimation on metal and like cups and all kinds of things. Sublimation isn't just for clothes, even though that's what most people would use it for.
on a pen or like
so it's the same applied with heat, but it's ink, so it's actually like infusing the ink onto whatever your material is, or whatever your
that's cool.
That's really cool. I guess this would be a clothing maker new question. Would you say that's what a lot of like companies do for their shirts, is sublimation?
So what a lot of people do for their shirts, they actually have their own dyes. There's a term for it. It's totally slipping my mind now, but screen printing, that's what it is. Most companies do screen printing. That's the term. So they have like a a big like it's basically a circle with a bunch of screens on it, and each screen is a color that fills in the different colors that you have on a shirt. So you need one screen for each color element of the design. So you'll put your shirt on, put the screen down, put the dye on it, pull it up, twist it, throw it to the next thing, and then keep going from there. But the dye sublimation is basically you have a sheet with a design on it. It's kind of like a heat transfer picture. If you've ever done like custom heat transfer shirts, like you print off on a piece of paper and then you put your iron on it and it's on the shirt now. It's kind of like that, but it's actual ink that gets into the fibers of the shirt. It doesn't sit on top of it like an iron-on would, an iron-on vinyl or a printable iron-on applique would be. So the sublimation is really interesting, and I've been super reading up on it, and I'm really excited to get into that. It's not super affordable at the moment because, like all name brand things, when Cricut introduces their things, it's always really, really expensive. So I'm working my best to find the best places to source that, and the more popular it gets, the more resources people will be able to find. Like, oh, you can it's basically polyester shirts, so the cheapest place to find a polyester shirt, or the best place to find your sublimation online, where someone will actually make the print or the design that you want, and not just having to use the Cricut like solid colors or patterns that they offer. So like it has been for when it was mainly vinyl and iron-on, eventually it will get a lot more accessible and a lot more affordable, but it's just you got to get those crafty people to, think about how they can get around the name brand and you have to use our version of it or else it's not going to work, even though that's totally a lie. They just want your money.
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's similar to like what you do, but it just reminded me, I bought shirts at the con, and it's like this shop that they have there every year. So you pick a shirt color, and then like they have like this huge album with like logos, patterns, and stuff. Like I got like a one with like it says I'm wearing it right now. Actually, it says "Suck It Trebek" on the front.
Oh my god.
And like I don't know, I've got like a Hattori Hanzo one, and there's like a bunch of like there's like Naruto, like One Piece, a bunch of different things, and you basically just choose what you want and they print it. Like you write it down and then you come get it the next day, and they print like the logo in the color that you want on the colored shirt that you want. So basically it's just custom shirts. I'm guessing it's kind of like what you do.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure what you're talking about. I think I see those a lot in like mall kiosks where they'll have designs and they're like, oh, I can make you this shirt, it'll take like 5 minutes, just tell me and I'll like iron it on here. And that would be like iron
but it's not really, it's vinyl, I think, because like there's like the colors that you can choose, and like there's little what's it called, swatches or whatever, and it's kind of like little vinyl squares, and there's all the colors, and you can choose like what you want.
Yeah, so I know that bigger companies, and especially things like that, you can actually buy printers that can print iron on vinyl instead of like sublimation. Those are two completely different things, because you can print on vinyl, but that is super expensive. Thankfully, just like how I sell my things on Etsy, there are people who sell printed custom like iron on vinyl that you can send them an image or your design, and they will print it on a sheet, cut it out for you, and send it to you so you can apply it. That's actually what I use for the back design of the Death Blossoms jacket, because the flower is not like a solid color. It has multiple colors and like gradients, designs, and you can't really capture that with solid colored iron on, so that kind of has to be printed. So that's probably what they do, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's making me wonder what they do, not to sidetrack too much, but what they do for TKO, how they print all their shirts, because my fiance has like 1 or 2 TKO shirts, and they seem to last okay, but when you wear them for too long, they definitely start to fade and fade quick.
Oh yeah, and that's with a lot of stuff, like especially what crafters have access to. It's not the same as making it in a factory. It is totally handmade, or at least, made with what we have access to, and most of us don't have access to the really good materials that the big manufacturers use. So sometimes you run into stuff like that. Of course, other times it's just, not made too well, but at least from my standpoint, that's why I've never done a whole big batch of orders, or even just told people that I flat out wouldn't do them a batch order of like a shirt design, just because it's gonna be cheaper and better for them to just go through a proper company, because they'll do a better job, not only like professionally wise, but also they'll last a lot longer. And I am only a one person team with a very limited ability to do things, so
Yeah.
Well, I guess, ladies, one final thing we wanted to touch upon is, as you are developing your skills in these crafts, what's any advice you would give somebody who's interested in the craft that you do? I think, Kris, you'd already touched upon some things before when we brought up that discussion about perspective, but if you'd like to start, what's some advice that you would want to give to somebody, starting out in artistic endeavors?
I think the very, very, very first thing you should do if you really want to improve as an artist is figure out what learning method works for you. Because, I mean, if you're going into it mostly because you want to have a good time, then probably just like drawing things you like or drawing your favorite characters and just getting that, muscle memory in over and over is probably the best route for you. But if you want to go hardcore, like if someone's going to try and go down the track that I went, that is where it starts to get a little bit more intense. Like that's where you have to kind of ask yourself like the hard questions, like, okay, I want to be a good artist. I want to reach a professional level. What am I willing to do to get there? Because if you want to make it professionally, it's really not all fun and games. Like you have to
start somewhere.
Yeah, you have to like learn the fundamentals, because that's what's going to help you improve the fastest. So it's a matter of how fast you want to improve. Do you want to have fun, or do you want to like hit the ground running? So I think just find out which one matches up closely to your goals and start from there. And after that, it's really just like straight up repetition. Like you have to build up that, visual library and get more comfortable drawing certain forms, but that all comes from the same basics. Like no matter what style you see an artist draw in, they always can be traced back to the same fundamental lessons of color theory, anatomy, perspective, things like that. Yeah. That's always the starting point. If I could give myself that advice, like maybe let's say 10 years ago, even when I was just like kind of casual, like painting things for fun, I would say, Kris, stop what you're doing, drop that fan art, and go study a textbook right now, because that's what I did as of just 2 years ago, and my art has improved in quality exponentially compared to all the years I spent just like drawing stuff and eyeballing it. So yeah, but that's what worked for me. So I think find out what works for you and go from there. And there will always be resources available for you if you want to accelerate your pace. Just have to know where to look.
Especially now with all the tutorials on
yeah,
YouTube.
There's never any stupid questions. If there's anyone, listening to this afterward who wants to ask me any questions about art, I'm happy to talk to anyone about it. There's dedicated communities and Discord servers. You can ask for feedback, things like that. Just find out, everyone's path is custom tailored to them and what they feel they're capable of. So, it starts with you. What are you willing to do? What do you want to do? And just go from there.
What I would add to that is like, don't compare yourself to others, because then you're just gonna get discouraged. Like, I stopped drawing for a while. I used to draw all the time, and then when I went to art school, basically I met people who were so much better than me, and I kind of like got discouraged, and I stopped drawing for like, I say like 4 or 5 years, because I'm like, I'm never gonna be that good. But don't do that, because then you're just gonna go backwards, and then like when you pick it back up, you're gonna be like, oh, I never should have stopped, I should have just kept drawing. Because like those people that are better than you, basically it's just because they've drawn, like, you think that you've drawn a lot, but maybe they've drawn like a lot more than you have. Maybe they get home, and when you're playing like Overwatch or whatever, they just spend the whole evening drawing. Like it's not like they're just magically good at drawing.
I think that's certainly the best way to go about it. But as I've kind of navigated from hobbyist artist to semi-professional to freelance to full professional full-time, it's actually more of like a tightrope, I think, that you have to walk. Don't compare your rate of progress or the quality of your work to other people at face value. Of course, don't do that because it's just damaging. But also, there's a way to flip it on its head. When you go to like these really high profile websites like ArtStation or something, ArtStation, for me, it used to be, you know, a really backbreaking experience to be like, man, I'll never be like these people. I'll never work at Blizzard. I'll never work at Riot. No one's ever going to want to pay me for my artwork because my art doesn't look like this person's. But as I continue to kind of like study on my own and embrace my own rate of improvement, because I knew that I was working towards something and I could see the difference month to month as long as I, you know, really put in the time and practice and try to take lessons out of everything I saw around me. I went back to ArtStation, and instead of saying, oh man, I'll never be good at this person, I looked at the artwork and I said, okay, you know, this person's work is so much better than mine. What can I take away from this? What did they do
as an inspiration?
What did they do that I'm not doing? And it's something that it's a philosophy that you can apply to like everything in your life. Like even, you know, playing Overwatch, you got some widow god who's like doing 6Ks or whatever. You analyze the video and you compare it to your own VOD. Like, you know, there's people who do VOD reviews and stuff like that. It's the same thing. Like, make sure that you can take something constructive away from it. And now these days I actually feel grateful when I go to ArtStation. I'm like, man, look at all these artists I follow that I could take away so much knowledge. And that just makes me think, man, based off this, I can't wait to see what my own art looks like 3 months from now. As long as I think about it productively and try to take away what's in front of me rather than using it to put myself down, because that doesn't help anybody and it doesn't help yourself, right?
Exactly.
How about yourself, Eterna?
I would definitely say from the crafting side, do your research. A lot of crafts are very expensive to get into. It's definitely worth it to research and see, you know, what are some cheaper alternatives to what I'm using. You know, like I said, it's so easy to go to the store and see that the company you bought your machine from also sells vinyl. Well, that's usually not your cheapest option. You know, it's good to try things that are, you know, don't waste your money on expensive materials when you're first starting out, because you are going to make mistakes and you do need to more hone your craft before you really get into upping its quality, I guess. And two, with that is that don't be afraid to make mistakes. You have to learn. It's really hard to get into some of these crafts, honestly. It's very infuriating when you mess up, knowing that, you know, you put all this time into something and then you get to the end and you're like, this is not what I like. But you have to make mistakes to learn from them, and to do better next time.
It's the same with like everything, like even cosplay. It's like sometimes I wanted to make a piece of armor and then at the end I'm like, God, I don't like it, and you scrap it and you start over. I mean, it's just part of the process.
Practice, practice, practice.
That's similarly, that's, you can kind of tie that into the fundamentals thing I was talking about before, where it's like, you know, if you have this rough idea in your head and you know it's going to take some really like maybe complex perspective or like some really elaborate lighting, it's not really something that, you know, you can eyeball that well unless you have like a lot of years of experience. So it's like, you know, you sort of like put the perspective together in a kind of like rough way. No matter how you paint it, it's not going to look as good as you thought it would because the prep stage was not as thorough as it should have been. Like in terms of an elaborate painting, like that elf painting that you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, the actual coloring and painting phase was probably the shortest part of that whole creation process because of how much time I spent laying out these perspective grids and flipping the canvas and making sure everything's correct and that kind of stuff. And it's only after that that I could kind of autopilot the painting part because of all the preparation that I did in advance. So yeah, for sure, the same philosophy applies to 2D art as well, because it's really like, you know, building a house. Like you don't start with the roof, you start with the foundation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered what we wanted to talk about. So before we go, is there anything you guys want to plug, like your shop or your social media?
Well, I would plug my Twitter, but it's like, I'm still kind of ramping up to the level of free time that I had to do art right now, but I'll just leave it. It's Twitter. It's ZINGANZA on Twitter. That's my Twitter account, username, whatever. And yeah, I will get back to posting art there pretty soon if you want to check it out. And also streaming, which I will post links to on my Twitter as well, so you can just look out for that in the near future.
Cool. And Eterna?
Yep. My Twitter and Instagram for my shop is at GG Vinyls, and that's GG like good game. And my website as well is ggvinyls.com. I run through Etsy though, so if you just search on Etsy for GG Vinyls as a shop, you'll find me.
GG actually stands for Great Games.
Well, it stands for Great Games and Girl Gamer. It's got that dual meaning, big brain plays when I came up with that name.
I love it. That's so cute. Sorry, I had to squeeze in one last goof there.
And yeah, you didn't want to plug your Twitter or
Yes.
Oh, my like normal Twitter, like my personal Twitter.
I don't know, whichever one.
Sign girl.
Yeah,
Come on,
I have a
sign
personal
girl.
Twitter too. It's at eterna_forest, and that's ETERNA, like the Pokemon forest, because that's what my name's from.
Cool. So yeah, I think. Did you want to wrap this up, Lynnda, or?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. It was really nice talking to both of you. I know, Kris, we talk a ton because you are on my team as my
Eterna's
beautiful,
on my
wonderful list. I know, this is just like, it's so cozy. Legit, Demi like made me cry the last episode, and I'm getting like the fuzzy feelings in my heart again. It's been so fun talking to you too.
It's like a double date up in
I know, it's so romantic. Oh my God.
Death Blossom's
God.
not only good for friends but relationships.
Oh yeah, no, I just love coming in here and talking to my friend Kris. I love her so much. Don't ya know? I like to tease Kris with my Midwest accent that I pretend to put on. Even though it's super phony, I love it so much because I love Kris just so much.
Sounds like my grandma.
Kris, make sure you eat.
I know, I don't have to put on an accent. I always have an accent.
Same here, just different place.
Woohoo!
Yep.
But thank you again, ladies. That's been this episode of The Grapevine, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Ta-ta!
Bye.